You probably spend hundreds, maybe even thousands on this camera and still on auto. Come on, that's like buying a Ferrari and still haven't shifted it from the first gear. Today, I am giving you 4 settings and that's it. Let's make it 5. Once you know them, auto becomes something you choose to leave behind. Here's what happens when you shoot on auto. The camera is left to make every single decision for you. Like a GPS, that won't let you choose your own route. Sounds familiar? If you drive, you definitely know what I'm talking about. It's a flicker in the exposure, a color shift, sometimes a sudden blur. All of this is the camera thinking out loud, and it shows in your clips, you know. Manual settings don't have to be scary. Typically, this is the order I will follow when I apply my settings. Now is not a hard and fast rule. You find what works for you and then stick to it over a period of time until you absolutely get used to your settings. So I'm going to be walking you through frame rate, shutter speed, aperture, and then white balance. Just simply leave auto behind. Leave auto behind. These are the 4 settings. So let me start from frame rate. You probably have been hearing it. There's 24 frames, there's 30 frames, there's 60 frames, there's 120 frames, and so on and so forth. When you hear frame, see it as a photo. When you take a picture, it's just a single picture. When it comes to video, your camera takes individual photos stitched together during the course of an action that creates the motion. 24 frames per second is what you typically have in films. It gives you that near nature feel. If I wave my hand in front of a 24 frames per second setting, you're going to see motion blur. Things are not crisp or super clear. It's what mimics our natural eyes the most. The only 24 frames in 1 second. When you move to 30 frames per second, the more the frames, the less choppy. If you move to 60 frames per second, the less choppy because there are more frames in 1 second. The higher you go in that number, the less the motion blur. If you were to shoot slow motion, you shouldn't use 24 frames per second. The reason being that it becomes really choppy. So most times people go for 60 frames per second or 120 frames per second if they intend to slow down in post. Here is tiny car set. I'm going to be shooting using each of those settings so that I can slow them down in post. So you just get a feel of what to expect when you shoot in each of these frame rates. So quickly, I'm going to show you 2 of the clips, the one from 24 frames per second and then the one from 60 frames per second, just to not waste so much time. So I have the first one here. I'll play it so you see. So that's the freeze frame, the motion, the freeze frame from the 60 frames per second. For full transparency, I'm going to show you the metadata. This is the metadata here, then 24 frames per second. And then I will shift it to the second one, the metadata for the 60 frames per second, as you can see. So I am going to move to CapCut where I slow it down so that you see the difference. So the first one, you can see the 24 frames per second. That's the original clip, not yet slowed down. The next one is the one I slowed down by 50%. The freeze frame, you can see it's almost completely blurred out, you know, because it's 24 frames per second. The motion blur on this one it's more dense. The compression it's a lot more here on this particular one. Then the next one is the 60 frames per second. I haven't applied the slow motion yet. Then the next one is the slow-mo one. You can see that it is smoother. Basically, that's what I want to show you here. On to the next one. The next is shutter speed. Think of it as blinking. You blink too fast, the image freezes and looks harsh. Blink too slow, everything smears. There is a golden rule in filmmaking called the 180-degree rule. It says, set your shutter speed to double the frame rate. And this is the reason why I showed you the frame rate first, so that when we get here, it will be better understood as I explain. If you're shooting at 30 frames per second, you simply double the frame rate and it will become 1/60th. 30 times 2 is 60. Right? If you're shooting at 24 frames per second, you times it by 2 and that will give you 48. But most cameras will not give you 48. You can only round it up to the nearest number, which is 50. So that's why you see 50 here. At 60 frames per second, you simply double that up and you get 120, right? Simple enough. Next is aperture. To demonstrate this, I have an old Nikon lens. The lens is like an eye to the camera. If you're using a mirrorless camera, the lens and the camera are two separate devices. So see it as the lens being the eye to the body of the camera. So light passes through the lens and hits the sensor of the camera, and then the camera captures the image. So when you hear aperture and you hear f-stop, you're just simply hearing the same thing. The lower this number, 1.8, some can go lower than that, but the lowest that this can go is 1.8 to 22. So the lower this number, the blurry the background you have when capturing a subject. Lower f-stop, 1.8 or 2.8 means less in focus, blurry background. Higher f-stop, 5.6 or 8 means more in focus. For instance, you have two people, you want to increase that f-stop to like 5.6 or 8 so that more will be in focus. Now to better understand this, if I open this lens, as you can see, it's wide open. It means that more light is able to pass through this lens and hit the camera sensor. And I'm operating on this lower number, 1.8. If I should close it, as you can see, the opening has closed and is left with a very tiny opening, which means I'm on this side of the number, 22. So less light is able to pass in to hit the sensor to create the image. Remember, to simplify this, low f-stop, less in focus, high f-stop, more in focus. That simple. Next is ISO. ISO is simply light sensitivity. Low ISO will produce very clear images, and high ISO will give you very grainy images. Low ISO, like 100 to 200, means that the sensor needs a lot of light. When you use a camera that has a large sensor, you can easily get away with higher ISO. Make sure you are not above 3,200 and 6,400. When you go above that, you're hitting the red zone. So I do between 100 and 200 ISO for my 7D. And then when I am using the EOS R6, I can do a lot of other high numbers like 1,000. White balance. Understand that white balance is calibrating your camera to capture white as white. Whenever you don't set your white balance, you introduce color cast. And when that happens, it means that colors have just been inaccurately captured in your clips. To correct those in post can be a hassle. You want to make sure that before you even hit post-production, like editing and all that your colors look right in camera. Like they say, what you captured is what you get in post. Like you probably already know, the camera sensor captures light, and that's how images are created. So if you hear Kelvin, it's simply talking about light temperature. Between 1000 Kelvin and 2000 Kelvin, it represents your warm orange tints. And then if you go across the other side, between 5600 to 6500 Kelvin and all the way to 10,000 Kelvin, you're talking about the blue tint. Now, with white balance, you don't want to use auto because auto has messed me up a lot of times. So I stick to custom white balance. I don't even use all these other white balance. Lock it. Locking it means that if you are outdoor, you choose 56 Kelvin. If you happen to be shooting indoors where you have like fluorescent bulbs, you can use 4000 Kelvin. Now that is you still locking the white balance. You don't want the white balance to be thinking for you. That's auto. Camera just guessing, changes mid-shot. I don't like to do this. Skin looks orange, shifting mid-take. But when you lock it, It doesn't change. There's no color shift. There's no color cast. Do this always. You will be fine. Natural skin tone, that's what it results to. Consistency in your colors all through your clip. And that is what I stick by. That's what I do, and that's what I advise you to do as well. That's it. Your camera just went from a machine making guesses to a tool that you are directing. But before we go, here are 2 challenges that I have for you for this class to help you practice. Challenge 1, auto versus manual test. Record a 30 seconds clip on auto and then apply your 4 manual settings. Record the same 30-second clip and compare them. Your eyes will probably be able to tell the difference between both. Challenge 2, ISO walk. Record 5 seconds clip, start from 100, work your way up to the top for each 5 seconds. Record another 5 seconds clip, bump it to 3200, ISO 6400, play the footage back and watch where the clips started having grains. That's your personal limit for ISO, and note that it varies from camera to camera. Subscribe and hit the bell. Episode 7 is around the corner. Don't forget to drop your ISO limit in the comment. I'd like to know what your camera can handle. This is Sam. Remember, the best time to create is now. Peace.